The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello, welcome to Propaganda, brought to you by Levi Solicitors. levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball. Dan, Michael, and Moscow with you as we do the show where we find out what's been said about Leeds United by you and by the opposition. Available both in your podcast app and on YouTube. So first half of the show, we'll get the Leeds United fan opinion. We'll take the temperature at Ellen Road, and we got our TSB Plus member feedback on the match ball and the game in general against Man City. This is the stuff that they picked out. Oh, how was your bank holiday weekend?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Saturday was the only bit that went to plan.
Did it?
At Elland Road, yeah.
Well, so, yeah, I suppose we did anticipate defeats, didn't we?
Yeah, it's been the weird thing about kind of the fallout from this is that Leeds just did what they were going to do, lose to Man City. I had that sneaking feeling that maybe we would just do something stupid and win, but we didn't, so I wasn't surprised. But it's Burnley and Everton who should be to blame, but they don't seem to be copping the...
So what are the general reflections on the game then? How do we feel about it? Well, the feedback mixed as it always is. We were too positive. We were probably too negative. What can you do? Look at the gap in quality. And I think the obvious starting point is probably Feels Bad Man says, I just want someone to tell me it's all going to be okay. It might not be.
I'm not here to tell you that.
I was going to say, if you're coming to Michael for that, you've chosen the wrong person.
It's swinging so wildly though, isn't it? Like, after the Watford game, you specifically, Michael, were telling me that we were up, and I was going, I think it's a little bit early for that. And now everybody, probably you included, is saying we're definitely down. I'm still like, I just think it's a little bit early for that.
No, it is. There's a lot of games left to play, and a few weeks ago, no one saw Burnley winning all these games.
No,
but obviously we won't do it,
and they can't keep it up. Everton as well, and Everton have got to start playing away as well.
That's true.
They've got to go to Leicester and get something.
Have you made your peace with it yet, though? I think that's the point I reached at over the weekend. I was like, this is out of our control, so I just need to kind of go with it now.
I wouldn't say I've made peace with it.
No,
it's bothering me on a minute by minute basis.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I woke up at, I think it was 5:15 this morning thinking about it.
The nearest it's been in recent years is the kind of championship collapse of which we did turn around. So maybe that's a positive example. But where you were like, we've fucked this, we've absolutely gone. There's nothing we can do. We're having another year in this league, and this feels like we're not having another year in this league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a miserable thing, isn't it? There's no two ways about it. I was really, really down in the dumps over the weekend thinking about this, but then I think I also reached the bargaining stage of grief as well, where you think, this could take twists and turns. Yeah, there's more road in this race. Yeah, I certainly don't think it's done. Well, it feels like it, doesn't it, when it's taken such a negative swing? Because, I mean, we'll do the relegation watch stuff over on the main weekly show, but we are now the favourites out of the three to go down. So statistically speaking, the algorithms all reckon it's us. Maybe this is just what we need. Maybe this is the rocket that we need.
If Everton lose their game in hand, though, then that completely changes. So I know it's out of our hands in that respect, but they do have to win that game, because otherwise they're still below us, and then we just have to match them. And if Everton can beat Chelsea, we can beat Chelsea. Don't know who Arsenal are, haven't done for years, and Brentford and Brighton aren't our friends, but when it comes down to it, maybe we can.
There are no friends in this league. There are no friends in this league.
But the thing, I mean, this is more for relegation watching and the thing, but those, like, the supercomputer keeps predicting a different thing every week, basically because the table keeps changing, and what it tends to predict is that you're very likely to stay where you are, and then things change, and that's the new prediction. So I don't know. We don't play till Sunday, do we?
No, I feel quite stoic about it. I think that's the word. If I could attach one word to it, it's stoic. I mean, because Joe is saying in the comments here, we actually played well. Fuck me, this league, pile of dick, which is about the size of it, isn't it?
We did play well to a point, and I heard, I think it's Gary Neville, our good friend, and the paper merchant, was saying that play like that, they'll stay up. Play like that, they'll stay up. And there is something to that. We really needed to play like that against Crystal Palace. That's why I'm kind of not bemused, but losing 4-0 to City was kind of expected. But the reaction is kind of like a hangover from Palace, where everyone kind of went, well, it's a good point, but it wasn't a good point in the end, because we knew we couldn't beat City.
Yeah, I will say that the decision to not go for it against Southampton, if that's the case, now looks bad, doesn't it? And to offer nothing going forward against Palace, yeah, makes you think, wish maybe we tackled that slightly differently. And just go to the top comment that we've got on the sheet from Costa Blanca, who says, this is under the "we were too positive" banner. I know why you guys had the reaction you did after being in the stadium, but if you look at it logically, we can't create chances, we still can't defend set pieces, and we didn't have a shot on target until the 90th minute. Yes, it was Man City without De Bruyne and Silva, but the Palace game wasn't exactly free-flowing either. With the fixtures left and looking at Everton's, I don't see how we survive. Michael?
Yeah, I don't either. I think the performance was better than Palace, and we did create more than we did against Palace, weirdly, which, given Man City are an infinitely better team, we should consider to be a good thing. And there was a bit more. We did discover some width in the game as well, which, while it was still narrow in certain ways, and Raphinha playing at right back is a bit weird, that is a positive, I would say. How we take that onto the next game is hard to say, because teams set up in very different ways, and Man City do play a very open style I guess, knowing that even if we scored, they could probably still just score 4, and I didn't get the impression they were pushing themselves to the absolute max.
Yeah, I don't want to be an XG merchant, but it was 1.2 for us, 2.7 for them, and if it had finished 3-1, that probably would have been a fairer reflection of the game. And again, I said this under Bielsa and saying, I'll take out the set pieces and we're fine.
Yeah.
So we didn't concede badly. I watched the game back, and we probably were not as good as I thought we were. Costa Blanca's right, that kind of coming out of the stadium with the atmosphere that was generated and the way it felt in the room, it had some momentum. And then just kind of after the Everton-Chelsea game, sitting and watching it again and kind of waiting for the good bits I remember to happen, and being like,
but the good bits were undetectable. It was shape more than anything. Like, we looked a lot better defensively, I thought. Like, the shape made a lot more sense.
The bits I remember that were good were the end of the first half, when we attacked and City started making loads of mistakes, and it was like the gegenpressing we were promised, that we're going to be turning over the ball high, running at them, attacking, trying to create chances. And then a bit of that at the end as well. I thought Klick was offside for when he crossed for Joffrey, but I don't think he was. So that would have counted. And then Dan James dribbling around the keeper like prime Van Basten, and just having it cleared off the line. So we had those good moments. And yeah, I think one of the things tactically that was kind of good about the day was we played a different formation. And that's good.
I think the inevitable comparison is with the game earlier in the season as well, when it felt like Man City had a chance roughly every 5 minutes in it, and they were just, every time they got it, they just completely strolled through us. Whereas they didn't in this. It did require set pieces, and I'm trying to think, other than the late goals, which they obviously added, they didn't have many chances, did they?
Well, I just want to pick up on the comments that Guardiola made in the wake of this, because a number of people suggested the tactics are still not right. Picking up on the kick and rush and all that kind of stuff. It feels like that's going to be built on the shape though first, doesn't it? Because I was impressed by the shape, but just on Guardiola's comments, he was saying that Leeds were not as aggressive as they normally are. Now I wonder, does he mean pressing there? Like, because we weren't pressing from the front, for example, like Rodrigo kept dropping off.
Just in general, I think it was an interesting contrast to Marsch before the game, saying that we're going to be aggressive and pesky and all that kind of stuff, and then Guardiola's afterwards is like, well, they used to be more aggressive when they were losing 7-0. I think that kind of relentless all-out attacking thing gets characterised as aggression, but then he does also say we suffered a lot in the first half for the last 20-25 minutes. I wonder if was it Burnley that they beat 4-0, and then he was like, wow, Burnley, wow, what a performance. So there's always a bit of that to take into account with Pep. But moving to 3 at the back, I know we've had a long time of kind of imposing our game on others, and what we'd not seen yet with Marsch was, although he always sort of tends to the same tactics and the same style, he will throw in a different formation, and this is the first time we've really properly seen that of him going, right, that team's going to play like this, so we're going to do 3 at the back with wing backs. And I didn't not like it. I can't be more positive about it than that, because we lost 4-0.
All right, well,
but I did not like it, and it bodes well that we can adapt. We've got a week for Arsenal, so if you've got a big idea for Arsenal, who are infinitely more beatable, then maybe we'll be on the pitch and there'll be something different in the team sheet.
Well, passing the ball to each other would help. Which side of the fence do you fall on with these comments then? So Johnny B has said one of the good things about this game was that we actually passed the ball to each other, that we looked like we had some idea what we were supposed to do. House of Stouts, on the other hand, says there were parts of that game where we did make City look stretched. The passing, though, felt as bad as the Palace match.
I thought it was definitely better, but maybe I'm wrong. maybe it's my expectations that have changed between the two games. But there were we created chances in this game in a way that we didn't against Palace. The shot on target was a fairly weak Gelhardt effort right at the end, wasn't it, against Palace? And then was there one other? I can't remember. But in this, there was Dan James going around the keeper. There was Rodrigo going through on goal, and I saw the moment where he should have passed, and he should have passed.
Awful to watch.
And it was so open for him, wasn't it?
And you can see
it wasn't even a difficult pass, was it?
No, and Raphinha would have. Oh, let's not talk about it.
And then there was the Gelhardt one, which there was Save Edison's legs late on as well. So there were some genuine chances in this one, and passages of play where you could see we did create something.
Somebody one of your fellow kinsmen, Michael, sinking feeling. Rodrigo is back to his awful self. The lack of conviction in that early chance was pathetic.
Very slow looking, wasn't he?
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those things. They ain't quite got up to the speed of the game yet. Like 3 minutes in, your brain's not 100% on.
Dan James would have sprinted through the middle and put it wide.
Well, on Dan James, TJ said Dan James doesn't start up front for the first time in God knows how long, and that ball breaks in the 3rd minute that will be ideal for his pace. I mean, he'd still likely have missed, but I think that just about sums up how it's going right now.
He might have at least been fast enough to get beyond the defence and cut it back to Raphinha, who could have scored.
Or have just seen the pass.
Or massively overhit it.
I mean, in fairness, we have been calling for Dan James not to play up front, and he didn't play up front.
I'd put him back in now, actually. I'd be intrigued by a Rodrigo drop. But I don't know if Marsch can do that, because he's banged on about him being a great human being and leader and all this kind of stuff week after week.
But who do we play up front then?
Dan James or Joffy.
Sam Greenwood.
One or the other. But I sort of feel like Rodrigo's lack of pace and not making the best of that chance just made me think like maybe Dan James was the better option. On overhitting things, I think some of the stuff going forward, we kept passing to Raphinha as if he's still on the wing, and he's not on the wing, so we just kept booting the ball past him, either out for a throw-in or he has to go wide. So there's stuff like that that's still not right. And we had there was one tactic that seems to be repeated in the first half, where we kept asking Stuart Dallas to do like a back heel spinning flick into midfield. Ayling would kind of chip it forward, and then he's supposed to kind of flick it with the side of his boot into the centre circle, where Click or Rodrigo would get on it and do something. But it's such a difficult thing to do. I didn't know how that was ever going to work, but we kept doing it like 3 or 4 times. So it seems to be like we've rehearsed trying to do the most difficult manoeuvre through City's midfield possible. And then obviously we didn't, like, Dallas departed.
Well, the striker conundrum. The striker conundrum is identified by Philip, who, to give him his full name, Philip, back to being bloody worried in brackets. We so absolutely need Bamford. A fair chance Rodrigo will play 9 and James will be wide in the next games. Maybe James will play wing back this time. Let's talk about wing backs then, and Rafa.
Well, let's talk about strikers.
Okay.
Philip mentioned strikers. Bamford back on the training pitch this week, if Jesse Marsch is to be believed. Is there
back in the treatment room in another week?
Is there a hero set to rise against Arsenal? Might be a bit too soon, but can we afford to wait? Just wrap his... If Lee Chapman can play with a broken face in 1991, nothing has changed since then in terms of player safety. Probably not enough. So just wrap Bamford's foot in Vaseline, bandages, plastic, whatever, to keep it together.
Yeah.
Magic sponge in the boot, get him his special orthodontic boots, everything he needs.
Dentist boots.
Yep. We're going with everything. Just throw everything up, put him on the pitch. Because when he played the first half against Norwich, that's probably some of the best we've done under Marsch, and then against Wolves. Although, obviously, I mean, we realised later that his foot was falling to pieces moment by moment, but he had that big chance that he just put wide in the first half. But we looked more dangerous with him playing. So get Bamford back in the team and we win all our last 4 games 6-0.
With Rafa supplying him from right back.
It seems insane that something could have actually snapped in his foot like a month ago and he might be fit again.
Well, that's the best thing that could have happened. The medical advice was...
So why don't we do it bloody Christmas instead of dicking around with him not playing for months on end. It's annoying.
Well, it's
hard to diagnose his plantar, isn't it? That's the thing. You've got to just rest it. And
I was intrigued when they said that he'd been struggling with this for a year. As to
I said that like I'm mates with plantar then, didn't I? Me and plantar go back years.
As to whether they knew a year ago that was the problem, or whether they've kind of figured out now that's the problem, and that's what's been bugging him for a year. Because if your ankles bust, then trying to work out what hurts in what part of what foot can be difficult. But either way, he needs to just get over it
quickly,
very quickly.
You've also got to use your foot. Let's talk about Rafa, because that was one of the main talking points I think from the weekend. Mad Ken Starling asks why in the name of Lucifer's beard is our Brazilian superstar winger taking long throws and playing at wing back in games we absolutely need results from. For all intents and purposes, we're in the bottom three now. Surely this isn't the time to tie Raphinha's hands behind his back.
I mean, Marsch wanted him central and up front, didn't he? Not long ago, I guess, so he'd be there to put in chances.
Do you think he was more effective from wing back at the weekend than he has been recently? He was, wasn't he? Because he was playing really wide.
And he was only there because Dallas got injured. So that change wouldn't have been made tactically, I don't think. But because we were 1-0 down, you make an attacking move, you bring on Dan James instead of going with... We could have brought on Charlie Cresswell and moved Luke Ayling to right wing back, and that would have been solid defensive. And if it had been 0-0, we might have done that. But at 1-0 down, know that if you put Raphinha right wing back, he can just attack from there, and little Dan James can scamper around up front, and we might have a chance of scoring, because being solid wasn't any good to us at that point. But yeah, suddenly having him wide helped.
What did you make of his reaction at the end? Rev Marks saying, interesting reaction from him, shirt over his head for a minute, because if you didn't see this, he stood there over towards the sort of northeast part of the pitch, put his shirt over his head and just stood still for quite a while. This was the point at which Marching On Together went up around the ground as well, and he just stood there looking forlorn. He takes defeat badly, doesn't he? Does Raphinha generally? I think that's probably part and parcel of it, but in my mind this is him thinking, well, I'll miss this next year.
It's been nice. But yeah, I wondered if he was just trying to ignore all the kids who'd assembled at the East Stand with Brazil flags all trying to get his shirt, and he was like, just gonna...
Well, because they've been pelting him with paper.
Ignore those little brats. Go buy your own fucking shirts.
Indeed, yeah. Paper thrower 8379 identifying themselves there. Mentioned his response at full time. For me, that was the response of a player that knows he's leaving the club in the summer, and a club that's helped him secure a place in the Brazilian World Cup squad, a dream of his throughout his life.
I don't know how we interpret it, really. He might have just been annoyed. He might have not wanted to speak to anyone. I noticed Marsch came over and spoke to him, and he seemed to pretty much ignore him. He said a word. It was only when Jesus came over that he actually spoke back to anyone, as far as I could gather.
Maybe that was it. Because he was a long way from the tunnel. Maybe he's saying, if I just stand over here with my shirt over my head, Marsch will leave me alone. But instead he strode 100 yards over. Like, oh, come on, Raphinha.
Come and celebrate with me.
Yeah, we're going to do we haven't had a...
Get your shirt off. Come on, guys. Let's go. We're spinning it around our heads.
We'll get on to Jesse in a second, actually. Just while we're talking about individual performances, it was picked out by Lucy that Cork looked much more assured at centre-back. I thought he had a decent game, even though we shipped 4 goals.
Yeah, he can play instead of Strauch if Cooper gets fit again, which
he's not having a good time of it.
Doubtful.
He's not having a good time.
I left the game not thinking Strauch had played that badly. Then I watched the goals back and I was like, right, okay.
He's bad on the goals, but if you remember the magic moment when Luke Ayling stumbled on the edge of our penalty area and just gave the ball to Manchester fucking City, and it was Stroik flying in twice that blocked and so saved those, and there was another really good flying block in the second half, but then the second goal, yeah, he could have blocked that shot, and then the fourth goal, don't just pass to Fernandinho. The first goal, though, if we're talking about Cork, was him. We saw a disadvantage of zonal marking, which is that Robin did not know where any of the players were and was watching the ball, and whoever it was, who scored? Was it Consuelo?
I can't remember now.
The goal scorer.
I'm pretty sure that's not how you say it.
No, it was Rodri. It was Rodrigo. It was the fake Rodrigo. Just kind of, it's a really good run from him, but it's made quite easy by the fact that Robin Koch is kind of just gazing into the sky instead of marking anybody or attacking the ball. So it was kind of...
If it's any consolation, I did a bit of gazing into the sky during that game as well. Just wondering where my life had gone. Jesse Marsch, let's talk about it then. The celebrations at full time. I mean, Ding has gone in with both feet. here on Jesse. Full-time nonsense. Marsch is a fucking lunatic and not in a good way. As predicted, he's hopelessly out of sync in cultural terms and this will get ugly. Also see the huddle, talking about the post-match huddle at Leicester, that wasn't it? By the way, my comments have nothing to do with Bielsa. He had to go. Ding's not in a good place right now.
I think Ding's been more depressed than me all season, as I remember correctly. I think he was wanting Bielsa out early as well. Yeah, I'd not seen the extent of this when I know you'd seen it on your little telly, Moscow, and we're talking about it.
I was there. It happened in front of me, Michael.
It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if he's...
Do you know why it happened, though? Do you understand why he did it? Does it make sense to you in any sense? Like, he was feeding off the energy of the crowd, no?
I think it's... You certainly need to applaud the crowd for it, but I felt like celebrating was a little bit weird.
I don't think he was intending to celebrate. I think
it was the shot of him walking down the tunnel, his arms aloft like heavyweight champion of the world. I just sort of thought...
Because before that, he was doing
Jesse. Like Rocky.
Firing his guns off and shouting, "You guys will keep us up." So that's what he's trying to get across. I think the fists in the air is he's trying to communicate like, I'm feeding off your energy and it's making me feel like this, and the players are going to feel it too. I think that's the message he's trying to put across.
It was chest beating, wasn't it, as much as anything? Yeah,
but he strikes me just in general, the sort of the trope of the main character, like who sort of puts themselves at the centre of things and imagines that their life is a movie and they're the hero that's going to save everything. He has a lot of that, and
Are you suggesting he has a messiah complex?
No, I mean, not to that extent. I mean, suggesting he imagines himself as the hero of a teen movie.
Okay.
It's kind of his thing that he's going to be, he is soccer dog and he's going to score the goal that wins the cup final and all this kind of stuff. And it's been like that, and he's kind of, it's like that when him walking over to Raphinha at the end. This isn't to compare them, people don't like that, but Bielsa just walking off and doing whatever he did in the changing rooms is fine. I don't know how I feel about him walking 100 yards over the pitch to go and to say whatever he said to Raphinha, and he's talking to Calvin, and it looked like he was getting into a conversation with Raphinha, and it's another one where I'm like, do this where I can't see it. I know too much about Jesse Marsch. I see too much of him, and then the fist bumping and the walking off. We shouldn't even be talking about it. We never had to talk about it when the previous manager just used to go away. The biggest thing was like people used to say, how can he squat like that for so long? Aren't his calves incredible? That was the discussion with kind of Bielsa. But even with his thing with arguing with the ref, where he's gone for a long explanation of why he does it so that he can change the referee's psychology. It's human behaviour 101, and then...
I hadn't seen these comments though until they were put on the sheet, so just pad that out a bit and explain what you mean.
Well, he was asked about the big argument that we discussed on the match ball about them trying to do multi-ball, and he took the booking for Cameron Toshak, and when the referee came striding over, he gave him a big round of applause as he came over, and he was close to being sent off for being a right sarky get. And he was asked about this, and he says, I call this human behaviour 101. I don't know if you guys have those kinds of courses in England. I mean, we're aware of the discipline of psychology. It began in Austria, anyway. We should know that from his Red Bull days. But we have those in the US. If the referee isn't behaving in a way that I think is appropriate and I'm asking things to change and they don't change, then I have no other recourse other than to adjust my behaviour to try to force the referee to change his. Is that a good strategy or not? I'll say this. After I get the yellow, I don't think it's a coincidence that they pick up a yellow in the next play. I'll tell you what is not going to be a coincidence is when the referees, who will have circulated that on their little referee WhatsApp group, never fall for that again. It's about, he's saying... I've seen it in Champions League. I've seen it in many different phases that the big club gets the calls, and so you have to fight. It's like what I've not seen in Champions League is Pep Guardiola coming out and saying, you know exactly why I did that, and I'll tell you so it never works again.
Yeah.
So, but that's the kind of the main character thing is he doesn't...
He's right, but don't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have the filter to just sort of say... I had an argument with the referee because I wasn't happy about the way he was going, but we move on and we go into the next game, so that he still has this in his arsenal. Instead, he has to tell everything about the thing that he's done so that we can all be like impressed by it. And maybe it is quite impressive. Like, oh yeah, okay, I understand that you've got this kind of while the players are taking on their opponents, you're beginning this kind of psychological warfare against the match officials. Like, wow, that's a really interesting part of your coaching strategy, but shh.
To go back to the celebration thing, I think part of it stems from it's admittedly a very, very difficult bit of nuance to understand, and it's possibly unique to English football and to a degree Leeds fans, in that we seem to celebrate sometimes more and get more behind the team the worse we are. Like there's a weird thing that goes on, like through the kind of League One years. There was almost a pride in the fact we're going to go and lose at somewhere shit.
I was going to say,
sing we are the champions of Europe throughout.
Just so we don't get accused of exceptionalism. You've seen it in what Everton's crowd is like at home at the minute as well. Like they're being very defiant and very supportive of their team who've been in trouble as well, and it's helped them. And we're doing the same. Yeah,
but it's a difficult. I get the feeling it probably isn't the case in American sports, but this is maybe because I don't understand American sports.
Well, there's less difficulty because there's no relegation.
Yeah, very true.
And you have teams deliberately playing to lose so that they get better picks in the draft and stuff. So it's a totally different culture. Generally, American sports fans, if they don't like what they're seeing, they will throw beer at you. So you don't get the support in adversity. It's a sweeping generalisation, but that's kind of the way it seems to be. He's one gesture away from getting it. If it hadn't been the fists in the air like this, but instead of been the old kind of like hands in the air kind of like I'm not worthy of this.
Yeah, just an applause.
Yeah. All the other players kind of get it because they've been here much longer, that they know to kind of, after a 4-0 defeat, go around, applaud everybody, but not start.
Look a bit sad.
Yeah, Calvin Phillips doesn't do his way thing as he went after a defeat.
Is led by the crowd. He never goes up to the south stand and says, right, I'm going to do this now. And there have been games, remember Pontus used to mess about where some games he wouldn't do it, so he'd wander off and he'd get booed, and everyone's like, what was Pontus being a dickhead? But that's what it needed, is just that kind of like, I appreciate this, but it felt like he had to kind of almost compete with it, or like the way he wanted to express that he was appreciating it put him in the position of looking like he was cheerleading it when... So, it does basically
we're going to be accused of analysing this too much.
Yeah, it comes down to he is one gesture away from being absolutely fine.
You're right, though. It doesn't actually matter, does it, all that much? It's just interesting seeing it when you compare it to what we've seen recently. This kind of really deep bond between fans, players, and manager, and it was largely unspoken. It just happened on a subconscious level, and we were all in synergy with each other.
Bielsa didn't have to do anything to make people love him. I think there's a lesson.
He did. He had to win loads of games. That was the truth.
But the way he was admired differently to other managers who have won loads of games. I mean, Simon Grayson won loads of games when we were in League One. I don't know anybody ever quite had the reverence towards him. He had the aura that he managed to present by just walking off the pitch at full time was far in excess of any manager, so it's not just ours, I think, has been able to present, apart from running around. But now I'm remembering Jurgen Klopp, but then Scousers will lap up anything like that, though, won't they?
I remember Klopp years ago, did he draw at West Brom or something, and he did this?
Two at home, wasn't it, or something?
And everyone was saying, it's sort of tin pot to do it, and then built on it, and I guess that vibe continued, and now they're the best team in the world.
There's a lot of that, though, isn't there? The celebration police coming out on Twitter these days, and it doesn't mean anything. When you've been in the stadium, you know what it's like. Talking about being in the stadium, let's, before we close out this section, go on about the paper throwing, because that's been brought up by a few people. Marvin asks, this says, the paper, so dangerous. So I need to adopt a very serious tone now, don't I? The paper, so dangerous. Ban this filth. Can we have yellow, blue and white darts at the Chelsea game?
What if all that paper had been on fire? What then?
And doused in kerosene.
What then? Yeah. What if that had hit Jack Grealish?
We're talking here about Gary Neville's response to it, by the way, which is funny because we saw the day after Richarlison lobbing a fucking firework into a crowded area.
Well, he wouldn't have done that if he'd not seen what was happening at Elland Road.
If that had been paper, he could have taken someone's eye out.
That was
imagine a paper cut on the eyeball.
Seemed to be the crux of Gary Neville's point. Is like, if you let them do this, you'll let them do anything.
And that's what we call a slippery slope argument, isn't it?
It got thrown because it was paper.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
If it had been billiard balls and something that could actually, cave in Jack Grealish's head, I think most people would have thought twice before throwing them, because nobody actually wants to cave Jack Grealish's head in.
And I don't think Jack Grealish would have laughed as much as he did had it been billiard balls. If one of those had landed on his head, he would have gone down like Jack Grealish.
But because it's paper, and because everybody knows that it's not going to hurt anybody, it was fine. So,
are you suggesting that crowds are capable of understanding context and nuance, Moscow?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom's saying we've got the best fans in the world. Yeah, it was a free hit, really. Just got to hope Everton are worse than us tomorrow.
Yes. Never mind.
Why weren't they?
Why weren't they, indeed?
Well, actually, they were. They didn't play well, did they? Just Chelsea were worst.
And do you know what? The best litmus test for this about the fans in general is what Pep Guardiola said. He had nothing but praise. I mean, it's very easy when you've won 4-0 to come and praise a set of opposition fans, but credit to him, he didn't have to, did he?
I mean, he can't fill the Etihad with the best team in the world, so I think he's likely to be impressed just by a full stadium. But yeah, I felt it. I know why this is so special. At the end, 4-0 down, fighting to stay in the Premier League and singing, chanting, showing support. That is why we said that it will be tough for, I think he means tough for teams to, yes, he meant for their team to come to Elland Road. Very tough to come to Elland Road and win 4-0.
And if not the fans, there's a good reason to be happy for the weekend. PT lists a number of reasons to be cheerful for next season. If we do go down, or I'm talking about the bargaining stage of grief here, where you start to say, well, get bigger away allocations, don't we? There's no VAR. We'll still get shit refs, but they won't be as bad as this lot.
No VAR is the one genuine benefit I can see. And more games.
Wait until we miss out on the playoffs because of an offside call.
Do you know what, though? Fine. It'll even out over the season. I still hate the stopping and starting of it all. So.
I mean, this feels previous, but it's not going to be. There will still be a Leeds United next season, whatever division we're in.
And that was the moment that I was talking about on the match ball when the crowd sang at full time. It reminded me that there's more to life than all that shit. You stupid Premier League anthem, shove it.
It's probably still a better game than half the ones I saw in games that we won in the Championship under the likes of Steve Evans and Neil Warnock were worse as an experience than losing 4-0 to Manchester City.
Yeah, we just need to
no, what's my point? That's where we're going back to. I'll be quiet.
We just need to aim, if we do go down, you just need to say, well, let's be Fulham and not Sunderland next year. Because look at them beating Luton 7-0 last night. Mitrovic has scored like 43 goals or something. But it looks fun. That'd be great to go and watch us win every week. Let's go deeper.
Would it be a better tactic though to let Luton get promoted and beat them 7-0 up here? That's another option, isn't it?
Do you want Angus Kinnear to be happy though?
I mean, at the moment, no.
There you go, part 1 done then of propaganda. Part 2, stick about. We've got that on the way for you in the same playlist, where we'll find out what the opposition fans thought of all this. Michael?
It was not nice.
The Square Ball Podcast.